When bad credit became my reality, I felt hopeless, stuck, stress, anxiety, not knowing where the future is going to lead me, frustration, hopelessness, regret, guilt. The bottom line is I felt stuck. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I can't do anything. I can't get approved for anything. I'm going to tell you my story on how I got to be where I'm at today. Yes, I struggled with bad credit just like most Americans do. It's very easy to happen. It's such a fine line and it's so easy to screw up. But I'm going to share my story on how I was able to overcome a 484 credit score. Yes. 484. And where I'm at today is a much different place. And we all have to start somewhere. And some start in worse spots than others. And, not every journey is going to be exactly the same. And I wish there was a one size fits all for bad credit. But the bottom line is you got to remove the negatives or clean up or clear up or pay up the negatives and add more positives. So eventually you'll have more positives than you do negatives. But when you're uneducated and you're so stressed out because you can't get approved for an apartment, you can't get approved for a home, you can't get approved for a car, you can't get anything because you are so stuck with this bad credit. And it ruins your life. Credit rules everything around us. And if you haven't figured out that by now, one day you're going to need your credit. So if you have bad credit, if your credit starts with a 4, 5, or even a 6, we need to work on some things. Now, I'm going to share my story on how I was able to overcome it and how you can overcome it just like I did. My story is probably very similar to yours. Life happens. But let me tell you something. We're going to take this lesson and we're going to learn from this lesson and we're going to 10x our situation. But here's the good news. You can fix your credit with the right knowledge, patience, guidance, and taking action. You are going to get exactly where you need to go. It may not be fast and it may not feel like you're getting there some days, but as long as you take action every day and commit to a better credit score and a better future, because they go hand in hand. They really do. Credit can dictate the car you drive, where you live, how you live. I had a funny story I want to share with you before we get into my story. And this is one of my first clients that I ever helped. And I actually went to middle school with them. Some of my first clients were people that knew me prior. I was their manager at one point, or people that were on my social media. Okay. So one of my first clients said, you know what? I make more money than my coworker, yet my coworker drives a brand new car with a lower car payment and they own a house with a lower house payment. And it's not like they make more money than I do. They just have a better credit score than I do. And when your credit is involved, it makes all the difference. Yes, they're two different people, but at the end of the day, the person that made more money was actually having to pay more in interest because they weren't educated. Their credit was in the 600s, so they could get approved for things, no doubt, right? No wasn't the problem. The problem was my payments are so high. Why are my payments so high? Why does, my coworker have a brand new car and is paying less per month? Hundreds less per month. How does my coworker have a brand new nice home and they're only paying this much per month? And it really boils down to your credit score. And it's very easy to achieve, yet it's very easy to F up. So my friends, I'm going to share with you what I went through and how I became the credit pro that you all know. So in my earlier years, I always got approved for things. That was never really the problem. I had a good job. I was always in management. And then one day I met a very small alarm company owner and I started working at his establishment part-time because I was just looking to make some extra money. I already had a really good job and they happened to be very close to my other employer. So I started working for them in the evenings. One thing led to another. another, and they're like, look, we need you on our team. And it was a very small office, but I definitely saw room for advancement and growth within the company. And, weeks came into years, and next thing I know, we're one of the largest alarm companies in the nation, okay? And it was exciting. I was so dedicated to building somebody else's business. And I spent 10 years of my life building somebody else's business. I mean, I was so dedicated to this job. I was working 6 and 7 days a week. Yeah, I was making good money. Yeah, I drove nice cars. I had a big, beautiful home. I had a pool. I was living the California dream. And little by little, all my coworkers that were in management started to move on. One gentleman started his own firm and is still very successful to this day. And I wish I would have taken the steps that he did, because I was so focused on building somebody else's brand and somebody else's business. I was blindfolded. I was blindsided. And then, 10, 11 years later, after we built this big, beautiful company, we grew a little too fast. And there's pros and cons with that, as we all know. And without access to capital, most businesses are going to crash and burn. And that's exactly what happened to this alarm company. They grew too fast, we grew too fast, and we were not able to access enough funding for us to maintain everything. And we were so far in debt with a lot of our creditors and vendor accounts already that everything just kind of crumbled. Next thing I know, I go to work one day and my boss is like, look, sorry to tell you, but it's over. We've been shut down. We lost our license. We are not able to do anything because we have a UCC filing against us. We can't get any more supplies. And until we pay this, we're SOL. So unfortunately, there is no longer a business anymore. And me being the VP of operations, I was the one that had to let all of my friends who I worked with, my coworkers, and people that I adored, hey, sorry, we no longer have a job. You and me both are going to need to file for unemployment. And it really crashed my world. I was heartbroken. I felt so lost. This was all I had. This was my baby. And I grew it for 10 years or more, and at this point, I was just so torn. I was so heartbroken because I felt like I lost the only thing that I knew, right? And when this happens and you're used to making a certain amount of money and then bills start falling behind, unemployment doesn't pay much. And when you're making over $100,000 a year, you spend a lot, right? I had just finished remodeling the kitchen in my house, and I owned my home, and I even survived 2008. I bought my home in 2007, and you guys all know what happened in 2008. Everything crashed, and I was actually able to hold on to my house, right? So thank God. And then come here 2016, 2017, my world crashed again, okay? And I lost everything, basically. I had to end up selling my house. And to be honest, I didn't really make any money off of it. I kind of broke even because at the end of the day, I had just put so much money into the house with this brand new kitchen remodel. And then when I sold it for peanuts, it was like a wash, And here's the catch. I sold it and I had, a lot of money. Okay, I had enough money. I had enough money to pay for an entire year's worth of rent. Okay, I could have prepaid rent, all right? But I had two problems. Number one is I had horrible credit. My credit just dove into a 484. And in fact, I have some proof that I can show you guys right here. So yeah, I was there at one point as well, guys. And I know the feeling, and I know how just stuck and hopeless I felt, you feel, because I'm telling my story to you. And I want you to understand that you're not alone in this, okay? You have someone that has not only been there themselves, but has helped thousands of other people achieve success. And I'm not one of those gurus online that are trying to sell you something, sell you a course, sell you something. No, I'm not. I'm here to share my story with you so you can learn and you can understand that your life is not over. It's just beginning. And in fact, we're going to learn from this lesson and we're going to 10x where we once were. All right. So back to my story though. So I lost my job. I tried getting other jobs in that field. I worked for all of the other alarm companies locally and I just hated it. I was so miserable. I wasn't paid enough. And it's hard to go to work when you are just simply miserable because you're making peanuts compared to what you used to and you're heartbroken. So I definitely went through that state of depression. Like, did I do everything that I could? Was it my fault? But at the end of the day, it was not my business. I had a small ownership in business because of my position. So what that did was it taught me a lot. It taught me business. It taught me how to expand businesses, start businesses. Being the VP of business operations, I was able to learn so much from my experience. But the one thing that they don't teach you is credit. Nobody taught us business credit. Nobody told us, hey, if you guys could get funding, you guys could save yourselves. We did not have access to funding. The owner's credit was so bad, they couldn't qualify for funding. So fast forward, 2017 rolls around and I am homeless. I've got a bank account full of money, but I am homeless. So what happens? I have a dog. I have to go into, an extended stay hotel where they accept pets because at that time, I didn't want to get rid of my dog. She was kind of like my emotional support system at that time. And I was also in a super abusive marriage. So my ex-husband was an alcoholic and did other things amongst that, but was just a horrible, evil person. And that's probably one of the reasons why I don't drink liquor. I can't stand it. I can't stand the smell of it. And he would be very abusive to me. So he would go through my phone when I was sleeping. And one day he found a picture of what looks like a man's shorts sitting on the couch. It was a leg and, the person was wearing basketball shorts and he flipped out. I was sleeping and I woke up to punches to the face, to the gut, to the side, to the ribs, just punches. And when he showed me the picture and, was asking me, who is this? Who is this? It was my younger brother at my home, and he lost his temper with me before he could even ask me. He woke me up beating me, and it was not what he thought, but he was so intoxicated that could change someone's mind. And it was just a miserable relationship. And I ended up finally getting away from him. So I had to leave the hotel, the extended stay hotel, and go move in with family. And he tried to follow me, and thank God my family was like, look, buddy, you can't stay here, you gotta go. And that was like my get out of jail free ticket. I said, you know what? This was my sign that I need to start over. And that's exactly what I did. I started over. And I mean, I lost everything because all of my stuff that I had for my home, I put into storage units. And we all know you got to pay for those storage units. And when you're staying and living that hotel life plus paying for 2 large storage units, money goes quick. Okay. And the money started deplenishing. I'm paying for everything. I'm paying for the hotel. I'm paying for the storage. And man, that money was gone before I could blink. Okay. So what do you do at that point? I was just like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And I remember sitting at my friend's house and saying, there's got to be a better way to live life. I can't see my future like this. And I started, looking up credit repair companies because even at that time, I still couldn't qualify for an apartment. So I did what most people did. Started Googling stuff. I said, well, where do you go when you need to fix your credit? What do you do? So I hired a credit repair agency to fix my credit for about 8 months. And I remember calling into them and saying, what's changed? What are you guys doing? What's going on here? And I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't understand what credit repair was. I just thought these people are going to fix my problem. And boy, I couldn't have been further from the truth. So let me explain to you what credit repair is and why, me being a person that certainly can repair credit, I'm not a huge advocate of hiring a credit repair company because all that credit repair does is simply dispute negative accounts on your behalf, okay? Some of them will dispute with creditors, but most of them do not. And the credit repair programs that are very popular, like LexisNexis, Blue Sky Financial, and a lot of these other popular programs that you find online that are, $79, $129, $199. They're cheap for a reason, because all that they do is simply send out 5 dispute letters on your behalf to the credit bureaus every month. So they'll send 5 dispute letters to Experian, 5 to TransUnion, and 5 to Equifax. And if you don't ask them to dispute with the creditors, they don't, okay? And 555, that's gonna take me forever. I mean, I had so much stuff on my credit. Did they get some things removed? Absolutely they did. But it still wasn't enough to even make a dent in my score. So my score was not changing. It went up a tad. I think I was in the 500s, the low 500s by the time I was done working with them. And I finally said, you know what? I gotta figure this shit out, because nobody is going to be able to do it for me the way that I need it done based on what my goals are. Because I knew at that point, I've always been involved in business. I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. In fact, I started with that company as a small startup and built it like it was my own baby. And that taught me a lot. So I knew I wanted to start a business. And in fact, soon as I got the idea, I started my business without even knowing what exactly I was going to be doing. But I said, I'm going to be doing something, and I'm going to help people, because I know there's other people out there that have gone through this same thing that I went through. All right, so let's fast forward to now, okay? 2019, I had to find an apartment. It was enough living at my mom's house. Like, I just needed my own space. So I actually had to fabricate my pay stubs. I had to fabricate a credit report, and was like, hey, if I just give you my credit report, can you just, let me rent from you? And thank God the landlord accepted. So I got extremely lucky. And then I ended up getting pregnant and having my first and only baby in October of 2019. I met her dad, and honestly, he made me a better person. He was the first boyfriend that I had after this horrible marriage, and we ended up getting pregnant, and honestly, it was just a blessing for me and for him, and we're actually still together to this day, and we have a beautiful family together, and we've built a beautiful life together. And he was the one that has been by my side to encourage me and just make me want to be a better person and push myself to go further in life, because credit is not easy. There are many times that I wanted to give up. There are many times that I wanted to quit. It's not happening fast enough. This shit doesn't work. I kept on with it, and I fixed my own credit. And let me show you guys something. I didn't use software. This is my binder, and you can see all of the paperwork that's inside of this thing. I mean, I have all of my return receipt mail items in here, from sending certified mail return receipt. I mean, I kept a copy of everything that I sent the credit bureaus. I saved a copy of everything that they sent me. And I opted out of all these third parties, and I learned so much along the way. And as I started seeing results, I was like, this is so fun. I love this stuff. And I literally got obsessed with credit. And I started researching credit repair business, learning about it. And that's exactly where I found the Credit Repair Business podcast by Daniel Rosen. And I used to faithfully listen to his podcast every single week, every chance I could when I was in the car, 8 hours at work every day. I had an earphone in, and I was listening, and I was learning. I was buying courses. I was buying into mentorships. And I said, you know what? I am going to learn this, and I'm going to be the best out there. I'm going to be a one-stop shop for everything that someone might need when it comes to personal credit and business credit. And I honestly probably spent spent in 2 years probably close to $25,000 on education and mentorships and coaches and courses to help educate me. And it was the best $25,000 that I could have ever spent. I used my own personal credit to kind of fund it because at that time I was already starting to build up credit. Some of the credit unions were giving me credit cards, and I used my personal credit to start funding my business. I started buying, a laptop. I remember Penn Fed was the first bank that gave me a higher limit that I could do something with. It was only $1,500, but I took that $1,500. I went to Best Buy and I said, well, put $1,500 on this credit card and I'll pay the rest, cash for my computer. And that helped me get my computer and I paid it off. And that was my first Apple computer that I got for my business. So I used my credit to fund my business. And I said, wow, credit is so powerful because I can literally buy everything that I need. I don't have the money to buy all this stuff, but I bought it with credit. And I started being just obsessed with credit. And here we are, 2025, and let me tell you where I'm at. In that 5-year period, I was able to move my family from the little 1-bedroom apartment that we were in. And let me tell you something, that 1-bedroom apartment, I couldn't have been more thankful for that. And I was there for about 2 years, with my family. And then, we were all living there, me, my boyfriend, and my daughter. And it was tough, but we did it, My bedroom was my studio that I used to record some of my first videos with. And I remember setting up my little recording studio inside my bedroom. And the first time that I tried to record content, it was a shit show. I mean, I don't think I even got one video done. I was trying to read a script. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how people do this. I don't think I can do it. Oh, it's horrible. And, along the way, I had to force myself to learn. One thing that I learned through this process was you can't just pay other people to fix your problems. You have to learn how to solve your own problems. You need to have the tools and the resources for you to understand how to do it. So that way you can have long-term success. If I would have just kept paying the credit repair company, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how to build credit. They don't teach you how to build credit. They don't teach you how to build relationships with the banks. Or what if you can't open a bank account? What do you do then? So I learned a ton along the way because I was that person that couldn't open a bank account, and I didn't know why. I was so embarrassed. God, I just wanted to get out of the bank as quick as possible and go cry in my car because they told me I couldn't open up a bank account. They don't tell you why. They don't tell you, oh, Check Systems is a reporting system and you owe someone money. I wish they would be upfront and tell you sometimes, but they don't. So you have to figure all this stuff out. And, with the amount of stuff that I had to resolve on my own, I learned a tremendous amount, not to mention all the people that I've helped over the last 6 years now. Such an amazing experience, but it allowed me to be the best. It allowed me to be the best on the personal side and also the business side, and allow me to go through the experience of trying to build EIN only business credit because my credit was so bad I couldn't qualify. And God, what a waste of money that was, right? What a crock of shit that all is. But, I was able to change my entire life and live the lifestyle that I want. I got everything back that I once had. I got the big house. I was able to move my family out of that 1-bedroom apartment, studio, whatever you want to call it. Now we live in a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2-story house. I have a Dodge Charger. I have a Mercedes Benz. We have nice cars. We have nice things. And credit was what made it all possible for us. If I didn't have good credit, I wouldn't qualified for this house. If I didn't have good credit, I wouldn't have qualified for those cars at an affordable rate. All of my interest rates are less than 4.5%. And that was all based on my credit. So credit is going to dictate where you live, what kind of car you drive, and the lifestyle that you live. And that was so true even for myself. And me going through this entire experience and helping thousands of people over the last 5 years has taught me so much about credit, about these banks and, what to do, because I felt so lost. Like, who can I just call that I can relate to, that's going to help me, that's going to hold my hand and walk me through the process? Because it is embarrassing and I don't really want to tell everyone my business right now. I was so ashamed of losing everything. It was heartbreaking for me, and looking back at it, I had to go through that learning lesson to be able to get to the next level. What you don't understand there are levels to credit. And I was just stuck in a level where I could get approved for things. I wasn't denied, so that wasn't a problem. But what the problem was, when I was approved, because my credit usually kind of hovered in that 670, 680 range, because again, I wasn't educated on the data points of credit. I paid my bills on time, so I had, good credit history, but sometimes my credit card utilization was a little high. I would go to furniture stores and I would get store furniture credit cards and then max them out because I wanted to buy the furniture. And now looking back at it, that was one of the biggest mistakes I could have made, because the credit cards are revolving accounts. So when you max out a brand new revolving credit card, it's going to tank your credit score. So moving forward, you have to get furniture loans as like an installment loan every month. Maybe the store will say, hey, you're approved for a loan up to $5,000. Great, perfect. Then you pay X amount of dollars per month until this loan is paid off. Perfect. That doesn't affect your credit utilization. But those store cards, they are the devil, and that's what kept my credit score low. So when I did go apply for a new car, my interest rate was sky high. But since I was approved, I didn't ask no questions. Once we hear that word approved, it's like, celebrate. I don't care what the interest is. I got approved, instead of understanding what is the interest rate? How much a month am I paying towards interest? How much of my payment is going to be paid towards the principal balance so I can actually pay this thing off, instead of most of my monthly payment going straight to interest? If your interest rate on your vehicle is over 10%, it's time to think about how you can refinance that thing, or even get rid of it and try to roll it into some sort of new loan. I mean, there's options out there, and sometimes, we just have to pay things down a little bit more before we can, and, figure it out. But at least if you work with someone like myself or join the credit community, you're going to learn exactly how to do this exact thing. And if you want to start a credit repair business, I show you exactly what I did, all of the steps that I did to make me so successful, because I didn't have a big following. I didn't have, a large social media. I built that, and I was consistent, and I created content, and I got uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable creating content. I know, but I would force myself to go out to Lake Merritt in Oakland and record content in front of all these people staring at me. So I made myself really uncomfortable in the beginning. And it only gets easier with time. The more that you learn and the more education that you get, I'm telling you guys, education is the new gold. All right? Because once you understand how to play this game of credit, you can play long term. And you are going to have long-term success. And you can avoid things like, hey, I'm going to be late. No, you cannot be late on your credit card. You cannot be late on any credit account, and having that mindset saying, hey, I know if I get this money, I got to pay it back. Because when I was in self-destruction mode, nothing mattered. And I was just taking on more bad debt. I got a car from a Dodge dealership with like a shitty ass credit score. But of course, Chrysler Capital would approve anybody with shitty credit as long as you had good auto history and showed that you had, other auto loans, comparable credit, trade lines, of course, that were paid on time. So I had several autos that were paid off that all had on-time payments. So that qualified me, even though my credit score was horrible. So of course, they're going to approve me at like a 25 or 28% interest rate. I mean, I was paying what normal people pay for rent for a shitty Dodge Challenger. Okay. So, and then I had to let the Dodge Challenger get repossessed. Yes, I did. I had a baby. Dodge Challengers are not good for families of parties of 3. So yeah, I've been through it myself, guys. I understand things happen, but we want to put ourselves into a position where we are going to leverage our credit to build wealth. We are going to put a plan into place no matter what type of business you have, whether it is a service-based business or a product-based business. You can always add additional services like credit repair, trade lines, business credit, funding, all of the things that I talk about, guys. You can incorporate that into your own business and help your business make more money. Whether you want to do this on a part-time basis or a full-time basis, there's room for either one. And that's the beauty of it, is every millionaire out there has multiple streams of income. They say every millionaire has 7 streams of income. So what are your 7 streams? I mean, you can get more than 7 streams just from credit repair and the credit industry. Personal credit, business credit, credit repair, credit coaching, affiliate marketing, credit building, lending, funding. You know, there's so many different things that you can do out there when it comes to credit. Trade lines, you know, personal trade lines, business trade lines, but you will learn all of this. Whether you want to offer that service to other people or not, you're still going to need to learn this for yourself. So that way you and your business can have long-term success. Because I'll be honest with you, most businesses are going to fail due to lack of capital because they don't qualify for lending and they don't qualify for some loans and lines of credit, business credit cards, and things that are a true game changer when it comes to business. Because you never want to just have, you know, hey, we're just relying on our invoices to survive. You know, you have payroll, you have employees, people depend on this business. So you have to have access to funding. It's really, you know, the bloodline of the United States. The United States actually lives off of credit, believe it or not. So take note from me. If you want to learn more, there are links below. Feel free to book a call. We can speak one-on-one and see if my program is going to be a good fit for you, because with the credit community, it is a group coaching program, but I also offer one-on-one coaching programs for those that are qualified. And I do have to qualify you because I have I'm only one person. And with the amount of people that are currently signed up, I will say, I can only take on so many people, and I have to make sure that the people that I choose to work with are fully dedicated to the process. They have realistic expectations and they understand this takes time. You're not going to be an overnight millionaire with credit in the first 6 months. If you are, great. But, let the statistics tell you it takes time to build a business. In fact, Rick Ross, who is an entrepreneur and rapper, once said it takes 10 years to fully build out a business. 10 years. Now, I don't know, that seems like a fair amount of time, but I would say every entrepreneur is going to see a peak at about 5 years. All right. 5 to 10 years is when you're going to start seeing the fruits of your labor, the success. You're going to create those streams of income. They're going to be flowing and the bank accounts are going to be fat. So I just want to share with you guys, no matter where you are today, tomorrow, or the next day, if you start taking action to get steps closer to where you want to be, eventually you are going to get there. It might not be cheap. It might not be fast, but it's going to be on its way, and you're going to set yourself for long-term success. You don't want to cut corners. You don't want to do things the wrong way, because then things can come bite you in the butt. And then what are you going to do? If you're fully dependent on somebody else, what if that person stops answering the phone? That's one thing I hear. I paid someone for credit repair and they disappeared. Well, that's why you don't pay people for credit repair. You don't pay someone else to do something that you need to learn how to do. You got yourself into this mess. Yeah, I can help you along the way. We offer free credit repair for people that are in my coaching programs, because that's just a very small piece to the puzzle. And I tell you, there's a lot of pieces. So book a call. We can talk more about what your goals are, where you want to be, and what that might look like for you based on where you're at right now. My name is Credit Coach Nicole Scott. Make sure that you have subscribed. Follow me on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And if you want to learn more, make sure to join the credit community. All of the links are in the description or in the link in my bio. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.